appreciate everybody coming. Shelby, again, thank you. Five Pillars Real Estate Team, thanks for having us. Just going to kind of jump into the residential side of financing we offer. You'll save your questions. We'll have a question answered. Right after you've done these presentations, kind of go through it. Very good. Slide us along. Patrick Stoy, resume, 20 years in the industry. We have an office in Wilmington, North Carolina. We also have an office in Raleigh, North Carolina, and do business all over the state on our residential side. This afternoon we'll be discussing residential mortgage lending. So basically we're going to cover two options. One of them is delayed financing and the other one is renovation loans and how to basically facilitate investment property using renovation.
Let's go in, sir.
All right, so with delayed financing, basically the way to do delayed financing is you have to come in and pay with cash on the property. This is the quickest way of turning your money as quickly as possible to go do the next deal, essentially. The key with it is there's no lien against the property. So between month 1 and month 6, or day 1 and month 6, you can refinance it going off of the appraisal value as long as there's not a lien against the property. It's a full doc loan, so we're going to pull your income, we're going to look at your assets, we're going to basically make sure that you can qualify for the transaction. To be able to do it, we have a minimum loan amount of $60,000. So basically you want to make sure that your project cost of the transaction, acquisition, rehab, everything like that that's billed in the settlement statement equals greater than $60,000. Want to make sure that your ARV, which is the after repair value, is at least a minimum of $80,000. What happens is we have what's called a high cost rule in the state of North Carolina, so a certain amount of fees cannot exceed a certain dollar amount, and basically $60,000 loan amount is pretty much the bottom of that amount that allows us to actually facilitate the transaction. So with the single-family residences, we basically refinance it to where we can go off 75 if it's a single-family resident. If it's a duplex, tri, or quad, we can only go up to 70% of the ARV to give you your cash back. Okay, so it's going to be the lesser of the two. It's going to be the project cost that's on the settlement statement, or 70% for a duplex, triplex, or quad, and then 75% for a single-family residence. You're able to do the delayed financing, which is conventional 30-year fix, good rates. Rates are generally on investment properties right now in the 5s, to give you an idea, and the term is fixed for 30 years, so it's a great product for long-term holds. You can have 10 financed properties completely. If you are going to buy a primary residence that's either a duplex, a tri, or quad, it allows you to exceed that. So you can actually go to number 11 and kind of build up, keep doing them as long as you're acquiring it as a primary residence. All right, delayed financing, how to buy cash. A couple different ways. Louder? Okay. All right. Liquid verifiable assets, basically money sitting in your checking, your savings, money market accounts. Come in, buy the property, pay for all the rehab right at the closing table. A couple different ways of making sure that you're protected. You can do draws on with your contractor, essentially have a couple different draws, so different invoices essentially, and that way those second, third, fourth invoices can be held back after they've got the seed money from the first draw. So you're going to pay for it all at the closing table, but then you can hold the checks back essentially as the work's completed, so you don't give it to them all at once. You can leverage your 401k. You can do loans against them. Everybody's plan's a little bit different, so you just got to check and see what your particular plan allows, or even a home equity line on an investment property or a primary residence, some other leveraged asset. If it is borrowed funds, we do require that we pay the source of the funds back to that source. Okay? Where that leads into the borrower personal funds, you can actually do a personal loan with somebody. We have to have a copy of the promissory note, basically showing that, hey, I lent them $60,000, it's a 12-month balloon. You know, if it's normally we see them at 0% interest as a family member helping somebody out. but if there is an interest rate with a payment term associated with it, we are going to ask for those canceled checks. So if you get it for 0% interest, a lot less documentation is going to be needed during that process. Okay? Max debt to income ratio. Basically what this means is based off of your gross income, and a lot of that can include your BAH, a lot of the things go on your LAS that can kind of give you the bigger income that actually is not your net. Is that, just an example, you're getting $7,500 a month in your gross income. $3,750 is 50% of that. Okay? We will never let your liabilities go any greater than 50%, or we're not going to be able to lend to. Okay, and it's up to 50%.
You want me to get it out of there?
So depending on what your assets, what your credit, those kind of things can determine, can we push that 50% limit, or is there something keeping us down a little bit lower? Income from the rental property. So a lot of times, you want to try to turn this money as quickly as possible, especially in one tax year before all this hits your tax returns, is that if you can buy the property with cash and your income is enough to support the new liability that we're going to give you back, we actually don't have to have a tenant in place to facilitate the transaction. We can actually give you the cash back prior to you having it rented, as long as your income is enough to support it. If you're basically if we need the income to offset the new liability, at that point, then we have to wait till you have a lease in place, so when the appraiser goes out there, they can see somebody's living there, and you'll be able to offset the debt with the rent. And if you're doing the right rental, you're making more money than what you're making more income from it than what it's costing you, so it literally washes itself out. All right, we go to the next slide. All right. How long does it take? Generally, that's a big question we get. How long? When can we get our money back? From the time that we order the appraisal, generally has about 10 days. The appraiser has about 10 days to get the appraisal back to us. Government law. Once we get the appraisal, we send you what's called a preliminary closing disclosure. You acknowledge it. 3 days later, we do close. Due to weekends and stuff, it's generally about 20 days from start to finish when we start the process of paying for the appraisal, where the funds are literally wired back into your account. Okay. The attorney that we use for all these closings is really nice. We've worked out a deal with them. It's $200. They send somebody to your house, which is nice. It could be at 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock at night. To make it easy, you come there, they sign it, you provide them your wiring instructions. The next day, they wire the money back into your account. So try to make it as easy as possible to work around these schedules. Appraisals, generally, if we do not need the comparable rent schedule, what that means is we don't need the income to offset the debt. You're looking at a cost generally around $490. If we have to do the comparable rent schedule, the appraiser basically has to go find and do a little more work on the property, basically by going and finding comparables to your property and what they're renting for. So they're having to do more work, and the upper end of that's about $715. Usually don't see them any more than that. Approximate closing costs, which is basically attorney, title insurance, recording fee, the appraisal, all the way through is generally about $2,500. So as an example, if you had a $60,000 loan, so you bought it, rehab and everything, and that was your cost of your project was $60,000, ARV is $80,000, you'll end up netting back, if you did not want to set up an escrow account, about $5,750. So just, you got to think about it on your acquisition, you're coming in, it costs you $60,000. At the end of the day, when you look back at the transaction, you will have spent $2,500 to kind of do both sides of it. So you're not going to get 100% of your money back, but it's such a small margin compared to what, if you just put it down and left it sitting there from a purchase standpoint. So that's why delayed financing is such a good vehicle, because it literally gives you your capital back to go do your next deal as quickly as possible. Okay. Questions?
You want to give a proof of funds letter?
Yes. So normally what we do is you said
proof of funds?
Proof of funds. So what we do is generally we like to work with everybody up front. when Shelby or an agent has somebody that they're working with, we actually want to talk to them prior to them buying the property in cash to make sure they can get their cash back. So we'll spend a good amount of time getting their income. We'll go ahead and pull credit. We'll verify everything up front, so that way, as soon as they buy it and they get it rehabbed, that they literally qualify to get their money back as soon as possible. So we will do that work on the front side to make sure you can get it back.
So we'll go back and ask the question a little bit longer so that everybody can hear that. Just like that.
He was asking about the pre-approval aspect of it. That we'll do that on the front side before you actually take down the property to make sure you can get your money back instead of buying it and then trying to figure out if you can get your money back.
You guys avoid escrows altogether, or do you?
It's up to you. We don't care. Choice. Yep.
You're saying the investment comes in with purchase price. Then going to a refinance.
Correct. So basically what you're doing is just an example, whatever easy number. Say you bought it for 40. You got $20,000 worth of rehab on it. So it's now $60,000 because we want to see the settlement statement before you close on it. Because if it's not at $60,000, we can't touch it. So if you're at $59,000, you're now stuck for 6 months. Because after 6 months, then you can go off the appraisal value and get that loan amount above 60 as long as the ARV is 80,000 or greater than that. But we like to see the settlement statement before you go to closing to make sure you've got everything built to it, your insurance, any expenses that you could possibly have that are on that settlement statement. Yep. Come in with 60,000. Yep, and then we'll refinance it, and then minus the fees of attorney, title insurance, all those things, you'll get back about $57,500 if you didn't want to set up an escrow. If you want to set up an escrow account, which is your money anyway, it's just sitting over there, you walk away with a little bit less. Does that answer your question? Anything else?
I was going to say, if you are that close, if you're at $59,000, just talk to your contractor because your contractor can increase the price, and if you need to work it out on the backside to get your money, you know what I mean? Just be a little creative with your financial things. Yeah? Do you guys understand what I'm talking about? Okay.
Upgrade the kitchen sink, basically.
Yeah.
Put a gold toilet in. So I have the residential side. Ron Saunier, so all ours is held in your person guarantee and it's going on your credit report, it's in your name. We'll turn over to Ron to where we can actually do them inside of LLCs where you're going to personally guarantee them, so now you can hold them inside the entity or you get above 10 finance properties. I'll turn it over to Ron.
Good afternoon.
How you doing?
If you guys will come up a little, you can.
I'm gonna be the creative side of the conversation right now. What Patrick was giving you was strictly individual that can do the delayed financing and or renovation. We're gonna talk this afternoon, just for a few moments, about individuals that have an LLC or a corporate entity. We lend strictly to business entities. Did you get me to? There we go. That's me. I've got just step back one. I've been at it for 45 years. I'm a commercial banker by background. I come from a part of the country where we pop cars and have clam chowder.
Hey, me too.
So the Boston area has been my domain for many, many, many years. I came down here in 03 to get away from the snow, retired my snow blower, and I've been enjoying it ever since. I'm also a veteran, like a lot of you folks, either are in the military or have been, and you can reach me at my cell and on my email. Fix and flip, purchase it up. That's what we're going to talk about here shortly. On the fix and flip side, this is where a lot of folks get a little bit confused. On the fix and flip side, if you would, next slide. Good. Has to be a business entity. We've all heard the term LLC, limited liability corporation. corporation. It could also be an S Corp, subchapter S, or a C Corp, or another straight corporation. That's determined by you and your accountant. But we lend to a business entity. We also look for personal guarantors. Those of you that own your own companies, borrow money, you have to back it up on the personal side as well. Here's the beauty of my program versus what Patrick has to offer. We don't need any financials. We don't need financials at all. We don't need tax returns. We don't need any of that. The only thing we do need is two things: a decent credit score and money in the bank, or what we call liquidity. That's going to be verified. At least the last 2 months. Every project that we look at is project specific. It's not in generic terms. So whatever project you come to us with that doesn't fit what practice is talking about, we can do. Minimum loan is $50,000. We can go there. But the lower the loan amount, the more pricey they get because there are a lot of fixed fees that are plugged into these types of transactions. We can go up to 90% loan to cost, which is pretty good. Acquisition, repairs, put together, one number, 90% or 10% participation. That's what we look for. Minimum after repair value, $75,000. You can go that way. That's fine. On a purchase, that's fix and flip. On a purchase, same thing. Got to be a business entity, personal guarantee. The only thing on this one here, we're a little bit more strict. Offer to purchase contract. Minimum purchase price has to be $75,000, and it's maximum 75%. Loan to value. So the participation here on this side up to 25%. Alright? We need to see the monthly rent roll. Most of these programs, if not all of these particular programs we talk about real estate, is all based on rent roll. How much are we getting a month? We've got to make sure that those rent rolls support the loan amount we're trying to get. And if it doesn't, we have to back down on the loan amount to support the rent roll. So there's a lot of times you might have the proper LTV, but you don't have the proper rent roll. And that's why we have an appraisal done on a property, there's 2 ways to look at it. But most of the time, on my side, we make sure to get these rental assessments to make sure we get the proper rental income to support the loan. Alright? We have a debt to service ratio that's a lot different than what you're accustomed to. It's called the amount of money that you have to put out per month on a monthly payment versus your rent roll, and we get them as low as 1.1. So for every dollar of rent that you're going to be putting into the equation, you're going to contribute at least 10 cents more as far as the debt service. So there's a little bit of equity participation there. We get a lot of good 30-year amortization schedules. We get some interest rates that vary. It depends on the project. We get 5-year odds. Right now, current rates are running around 6.75. Still the same amortization. We get 10-year odds running about 6.9. And most recently, I just did a very, very nice, what we call a portfolio loan. I'll get to you in a minute, with a 30-year fixed rate of 7.325. And the business wallet's a decent rate. Appraisal is the only upfront fee that you have to incur, and usually it's between $450 and $650. A lot of folks say, does a residential property qualify for a commercial loan? And the answer is yes, all day long. Residential real estate is considered commercial as long as we lend to a business entity. All right? Closing costs are approximately, I'm the more expensive person. When we're in the jail for some of the more pricey, $4,500 on average. That's between fees, lawyers, insurance, etc., etc. And in my world, we can do it in about 2 weeks, on average, as far as the closing is concerned. Next slide. Here's the other type that we run you down. Mixed-use properties. I don't know if you folks are in that world yet. I know you're all more in the residential side, but we offer mixed-use properties, bridge loans, commercial loans for apartment complexes. Now I know in this area, we've talked about this before, Shelby, where you've got some units out here in that 5-unit category, and everybody gets a little bit excited about how we're going to get that financed. I can do that, but it takes a specialized approach to it, and it's all based on rent roll. You got to keep that in mind all the time. It's all about rent roll. And then we can get into commercial loans for office buildings, small business. I've had some experience in that, but we don't push that too much. And then I want to leave you with another one here, which is, I get excited with them because I've got them down pat, I like them, and they're called portfolio loans. Portfolio loans is where you have a group of an investor, like yourself, that may have multiple properties, and you've owned them for some time, and you want to take some money out of it. You bought them at a real good price, you've held on to them for a long time, you get some decent rent roll, now you want to cash out. It's a wonderful product that we have right now in the marketplace. And I would, if you have that kind of I don't know if you're experienced or not yet, but as we get to that spot, these portfolio loans become a real good, I've got a lot of calls on it myself. That's an overview. I could spend an hour and a half about commercial lending, but I just wanted to get a couple points because I know time is limited. Do you have any questions for me to answer regarding commercial?
You said that all you care about is credit and liquidity. So how are you measuring the credit of the LLC?
Minimum credit score 620.
But are you measuring every owner of that LLC and
Yes.
pulling credit on every individual?
Yeah, if you have more than one individual in an LLC, if you've got 20% or more equity participation in the LLC, you become a personal guarantor.
Right.
All right? That's a good question. And then the personal guarantee side kicks in, and that's why, from a pricing mechanism, that's why even on the personal side, even though we're going to lend to a business, that credit score is important for the individual because that's our pricing mechanism.
Are you pulling 3 scores and using the middle score, or what do you normally do?
It's a middle score.
Middle score.
Yeah. And it's pretty straightforward. Like I said, 620 in the business world is pretty reasonable. The better pricing, 680 and up. Better pricing, 680 and up. The better the participation, whether it be in the form of equity, like yourself, or the credit score, is going to make the pricing mechanism more favorable.
I got you. And you said you're not interested in financials, but you don't get tax returns for the LLCs?
Don't need
get tax returns at all?
Good question. The only thing we need from the owners of the LLC is a copy of the articles of organization, operating agreement, and if you've been at it for a while, I just need a certificate of good standing to make sure you've been behaving yourself. That's it. It's pretty straightforward. But I'm easy to deal with, but just so you know, if you bring a deal to me, or to our company, I should say, not me, to us, I do most of the underwriting on all the files because of my background, so I can sift through it and tell you whether you got a good deal. That's a big piece for us to offer to all of you, because I can look at things from a business standpoint and say, yes, it makes sense. You're a little bit right here, or you need to short it up this way. Make sense?
So I have a question for you.
Question.
Are you also looking for a particular amount of money that's seasoned sitting in that business account?
I beg your pardon?
A particular amount of money that's seasoned sitting in that business account?
Yeah, usually a couple of months. I mean, I need 2 months of bank statements. That's why we ask for that. That takes care of the seasoning. So if you got two trails, 2 months of.
I think he's saying you don't need 6 months reserve.
No, you don't. No, it's 2 months of bank. Well, let's step back on like what Patrick almost said. The liquidity is going to tell us that you got the down payment and you do have reserve requirements that will be put on that deal. The reserve requirements are generally 6 months worth of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance on your pay. That's how that works.
On all properties?
All property. Now that's what purchase, and that's strictly purchase. I'm not talking about fix and flip now. Fix and flip is different. Because fix and flip, you're going to take a cut.
But the reserves don't have to be liquid.
No. Well, yeah.
You can use 401k.
I can use any of them. Just like Patrick had alluded to with this.
So you can piece
Same
it
thing.
together.
Sure. We got the same thing. Liquidity is a key in the commercial world. Because we don't need financial statements, but we got to know where the money is. All right? Makes sense? I mean, we don't need tax returns. Everybody affords tax returns and personal financial statements. 2 months worth of statements doesn't. And a good credit rating. And we can pretty much surmise by that, those two pieces, whether we got a good borrower or not.
What's a commercial appraisal usually run? Commercial appraisals are way.
$450 to $650
Oh, is that it?
on the residential side.
On the residential side.
Because most of what you folks are doing is pretty much in that category. If you get into office buildings or you get into high-rise apartments, that's a different ballgame.
Or just multi-unit apartments, right? 10 units.
Those can run around anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500, depending on the size. You got to be careful. A smaller unit, 5 unit, we can probably get away with about 650.
Hey Ron,
Yeah.
if the business has enough history and has demonstrated consistent profits, is there the ability to get away from the personal guarantee?
In some instances, yes, we can do non-recourse, but it depends on what we're doing.
Sure.
I have non-recourse funding mechanisms out there that can do that. And that's when you start getting into the more sophisticated, if you will, the more high-rise, multiplex, complex apartment buildings. Yeah, then we start to look at the secondary market for commercial, where you get some good pricing. So that's when you have to have some pretty good net worth, pretty good income, pretty good track record to get there. All right? Any other questions? Patrick's right, I like to talk, but I want to cut it short because I know you probably want to have some beer. But I really appreciate you at least spending a few minutes with me. If there's anything that you need in terms of my expertise or Patrick's expertise, any of us here at the mortgage company that we represent, you've got all our contact information, and Shelby's been a sweetheart here. I talked to her for about a year, and I just met her today. That's been great. Thank you.
Alright guys, I'm going to put both of their contact information on our Pints Properties Facebook page. So if you're not a member, just search Pints Properties and request to join the group. And then also, if it's okay with you guys, I'll put the slides up there. Sure. Is that okay? Okay, cool. Okay, I know it's kind of hard to hear in the beginning, so for the next, you guys can stay as long as you want, grab a beer, and then pick their brains. It's all talk and network, and then with the BRRRR deals, Patrick has done a ton of BRRRR deals for my clients, and then my team and I are really familiar with doing them. They're really popular right now, so if you have any questions, just hit us up. Okay? All right, cool.
Thank you all.